Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I am Spencer.
And I'm Katie. Today we are going to be discussing trauma, how it affects us, how to change our thought processes, how to heal from it in general. And I'll be talking about a lot of my personal experience today, just because I do have a lot of experience with the topic. I'm just going to start. I'm going to briefly go over the different types of trauma I've personally experienced, so that I've experienced childhood abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. I've been victim blamed as well. You got to remember that the abuse is never the fault of the victim. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
But that is a thought you have to really remind yourself of every day when you're struggling with trauma. And I've been groomed by older guys when I was a teenager, been in a relationship with a narcissist, been in a traumatic car accident where the car flipped a couple times. I didn't have any injuries from that somehow. So that was a miracle, I guess. That was a miracle of my Subaru. I'm going to shout them out. I know we're not sponsored by them or anything, but that's just my personal opinion, is that I had a great car that protected me. And the last piece of trauma, a lot of people don't acknowledge this as trauma, but experience in jail, I would say, is traumatic. It's just a different kind of environment. And so I shout out family therapy as the first form of therapy that helped me heal. I healed my relationship with my mom. Used to have a terrible relationship with her. Now we're extremely close. So I definitely thank family therapy for that. I know a lot of the older generation isn't as open to therapy, so I know that's kind of hard and not everyone will be able to do that, but I've been blessed with a mother who's open to that and who's changed herself. And individual and group therapies were also helpful for me. They helped me work through my trauma as well. I think group therapies just allow you to empathize with others, realize you're not the only one living this experience, and seeing others people helps you to heal. It motivates you to heal when you can see others heal. And individual therapy is probably my top recommendation for anybody, because if you can find the right therapist, make a connection with them, open up to them, and get a professional second opinion and get some good advice from somebody who has experience with this, is a great tool. And then this is a coping skill. Well, there's a lot of different coping skills you can use with this, but creative self-expression, very powerful tool. We use it to process emotions in general, but especially with trauma, include visual art, music, writing, sports, other activities, even paintball, or if you're into guns, you can go to a shooting range. Dancing, performance art, there's plenty more. There's many ways you can express yourself and release your anger. Physical exercise is another good one, if you can get yourself into that. For me, I also have a few techniques that I use personally, that you can use anywhere in any situation. If you're starting to feel the anxiety come on, or you're starting to feel a flashback, you're starting to feel whatever negative emotion that's coming onto you. Deep breathing is one. It works in the beginning. So you have to learn how to notice the calm before the storm. You have to start seeing the signs early when you're practicing these techniques. So learning how to identify your emotions is very important for this. So I have 2 grounding techniques I use besides deep breathing. And one of them is called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. So you take your 5 senses, and they don't have to be in this order, but let's say you say 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. And like I said, it doesn't have to be in that order, but just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just noticing the environment around you. The second technique I learned is basically you find an object around you somewhere, in the room or wherever you are. You just find one thing, and you want to completely focus on any descriptors and anything you can think of to describe what this object looks like, sounds like, even tastes like food, I guess, etc. Let's say you're looking at a clock. You'd say, this is a white clock. It's got black numbers. There's a ticker on it, and it is red. The clock is in a circle shape. Just things like that. And that was one that was actually taught to me by a tech from treatment. And, you can use it when, let's say you're in a professional situation. Let's say you're in a meeting for your job, and you get a text that your partner's cheating on you. Like, you can't cry right on the spot there because it's just unprofessional, like, and you have to still be engaged in this meeting. Or if you need to excuse yourself, it's absolutely fine in that situation, of course. And there is not a problem with doing that when you need to do that. But if it is something that you think that you can manage, then it is a really good tool.
Yeah, no, those are really good techniques, I think. It's just, I kind of find it interesting, or I guess I don't know if interesting is the right word, but definitely interesting how to kind of get yourself, because it's almost like you're pulling yourself out of your head and into the real world. So that's just a really interesting way to think about it, I guess, because I've never thought, because I've heard about like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if I heard about that other method that you brought up, but I don't think I ever truly thought that deeply about them to where I understood that this is why it's because it's pulling you out of your head.
Exactly.
So that's just a really interesting, like, I don't know, that's just interesting to me to kind of process that really you're just kind of pulling yourself out of your head in a sense, which is good.
Because it's really helpful for like dissociation, especially. Do you know what dissociation is?
Sort of. No, I wouldn't say I know like the exact definition or anything, but we can, I don't know if you have it. Yeah.
I guess let me look up the definition.
Okay.
Right? Because I really don't want to butcher this.
Yeah. I think it's a very intricate thing too, though. Like, not, like, it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it.
Okay. So
you have the explanation. Yes, yeah.
Psychiatry.org says dissociation is a disconnection between a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or sense of who he or she is. So it's basically kind of almost feeling out of body in a sense, like you're stuck in your head, or like maybe some people even see it as like viewing yourself in the third person at times.
Yeah, that's because it's like you're still stuck in your head. Like when you're disassociating, you are in your head, but it's almost like you're kind of like above your head, like you're looking down on yourself in a way, which is also interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily, but it can be obviously anxiety inducing and all that. Because anxiety, I would say, is very, I don't know, there's a lot to it. Like an anxiety, I would almost say, is on a wheel kind of spectrum style where there's a bunch of different facets maybe to anxiety.
Yeah. With dissociation, it's more, I guess you would feel numb, but you might also feel anxious on top of it.
Yeah. And it's just interesting how that like can actually, like how thoughts can lead to that, I guess. The brain itself can have you thinking or feeling that way. That's just interesting, I guess, is what.
Also, like, there's medications, there's, alternative substances you can use that are shown to help treat PTSD. And my personal thing is that I have found certain things to be helpful to combat my PTSD and the dissociation associated with it. It's not for everybody, but it just helps me in my circumstances. But like trauma ultimately affects everybody differently. And so there's going to be different methods that help people treat their own trauma depending on the journey they're going through to heal. And it's important to notice how your trauma affects you. It's important to, like I said, if you have access to it, individual therapy. There's many places that have resources, or even some insurance companies will pay if you don't have the means to pay. But there's a lot of resources out there depending on where you live that can help you out with finding different tools to help you, such as therapy. And I think anybody who would walk into a therapist's office with an open mind is going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter where you are on your healing journey ultimately, or where you are with your mental health. Like, any person who walks into a therapist's office has a good therapist that they can find a connection with, like, and they're open-minded, they're going to benefit. You can always learn something new about yourself.
Definitely.
You can always learn new things about others.
Yeah. I mean, trauma is just a very also interesting, I guess, I don't know, beast, if you will. It's just, and it can almost feel like I also feel like sometimes what can happen is that trauma can almost kind of just pop up out of nowhere. Like, even if you're not thinking about, because I almost feel like sometimes I'd have to look into any science or facts about this, but I feel like it can almost sometimes be internalized to, like, deeply internalized to where you're not even subconsciously aware, but at times maybe your mind will just start racing and you're like, oh, well, why is this happening? Or maybe you'll start, I don't know, maybe like your heart will start, like just physical symptoms, and it won't really make sense. You're like, well, why is this happening? But I feel like sometimes that can just be and it could be something like, I don't know, maybe you saw a color that you don't realize it reminds you of the trauma experience, but your body reacts as if it's going through that trauma again, but you don't know why. So that's always very and then it's, I don't know, because obviously in that situation, you can't recall the trauma. So you can't control, but you can still do those techniques 1000%. And I feel like those are good for any sort of anxiety, like any sort of where your mind is maybe getting, I don't know because I don't want to overgeneralize by just saying anxiety, but when your mind just gets like racing on anything, like those techniques can help pull you back into, I guess you could say reality, but just into the 3D rather than in your own head, I guess.
Yeah. And trauma is connected to the body. Like when you actually look at the science behind it, like I couldn't name it all off the top of my head right now. But basically trauma is stored in your body, and it's actually different. There's science that shows that children who experience trauma have weaker immune systems, for example.
That makes sense, especially
because more autoimmune disorders.
That makes a lot of sense, because I feel like that anytime, again, I'm not trying to generalize anything, but I feel when going through trauma, obviously it's traumatic, which can put your body into fight or flight, because it's just like kind of a natural reaction of your body when you're in a stressful situation to go into fight or flight. So then, especially I would say for children who may not have the maybe mental capacity at that age to process these feelings and emotions, they in a sense can maybe hold on to it subconsciously, so that their body either always thinks it's in fight or flight, so it's continuously releasing cortisol or whatever stress hormones that may be, and that's going to affect your body, which can lead to disease. And obviously we know that bacteria and stuff can also lead to disease, but I think the stress, I guess, model of disease is also very important to take into consideration, especially if somebody new comes in, because a lot of times I do think people will think it's our body. I'm not saying it is still your body, but it's the trauma that is in a sense causing your body to have this stress response, which is leading to disease. So in my opinion, treating the disease in that case isn't going to solve it, because you need to treat the trauma, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because the trauma is the underlying problem. The disease is a result of the trauma. Right. Not all diseases, obviously, but I think in some cases I don't know how, I think that's just something that maybe, I don't know, just healthcare professionals should also just be open-minded about taking into consideration. Yeah. And the patient, again, may not even realize they have trauma either. So it's not like they can tell you. They just literally think their body is overreacting and they don't know why, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I just don't know how much, because I don't remember, I don't think we talked about trauma in nursing school at all, and so I feel like it's kind of newer knowledge that we're learning about trauma and how it can lead to disease in a sense. Yeah, I can. Just because of the stress, because the stress hormones are not good to continuously have flowing through our body. And that's in any case too. Yeah. Even if you have a stressful job, that can still lead to sickness. Right. In a sense. So it's not always just stress in general too. But trauma is a very interesting thing, because you may not even realize the trauma is causing this reaction, because you don't even subconsciously know the trauma. At least that's how I think. I'd have to look into research and stuff, or if somebody knows that I'm wrong, and then they can comment and let me know, and I will definitely obviously learn from that too. So, but that's just in my head what makes sense logically, I guess. And some people don't even realize they have trauma too. Yeah. That's another thing. Even whether it's a memory issue or whether it's just something that happened when you were young. And some people may not even... Or if you don't consider it trauma, you yes. Downplay it. Yes. Either way. If you don't think you have trauma and you do, that's the first step, is coming to terms with your trauma. Because I think we also, as a society, need to understand that anybody can experience trauma. And I just sometimes see people... Oh, what's that word? I see people belittling other people's trauma because their trauma was worse. And that is, you cannot do that to people at all, because everyone's trauma is valid. I don't care if you think, why would you want to be like, make someone feel worse because you think that your trauma was worse? Like, I just can't comprehend why anyone would want to put someone through that, like belittle someone, because that's even worse too. Because if you tell someone that their trauma wasn't real, then they're gonna act like it never happened, and that is not going to help them heal. So anyone who tries to belittle anyone for their trauma is wrong, because everybody's trauma is valid. It doesn't matter if you think you went through it worse, because why does that even matter?
People say like they deserve it. That's what really does.
That's fucked up. No one deserves it.
Can't believe. But like, there are some instances where you're like, oh, this is a bad person, so like they deserve. But no, like nobody deserves their trauma.
No.
No matter who they are.
And I just don't even believe in the labels of good or bad. Nobody's a good person. Nobody's a bad person. We are all humans who make mistakes, and we do good things and we do bad things. It's all subjective. But
it doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable.
No, 1,000%. Everyone is we are all accountable for our actions, 1,000%. But nobody is better than anybody else, and nobody is a good person or a bad person. Yes, we can call people out for their actions, 100%. I'm not saying we don't. We definitely do that, 1,000%. Like, if I do something, call me out on it, 1,000%. Don't let me get away, like, just because you think, oh, he's a good person. It was probably a mistake. He didn't mean it. No, call me out. Call everyone out. Like, to an extent, obviously. I don't like cancel culture, but yeah. But you also have to, I like constructive criticism, because I definitely feel like there's a lot of just hate criticism on the internet. So it's hard to take feedback from that, because a lot of times people, they may just be trolling, or I don't know. A lot of times it's hard, unless you give advice with your feedback. It's hard for anyone to learn from that. But you also have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they will learn. You can't go into a situation being like, oh, this person did this, so they're a shitty person, we should cancel them forever. No, because that doesn't give them, I mean, again, if someone keeps repeating a behavior over and over, then that's a different scenario. But if it's the first time and you're calling them out and giving them feedback, you have to also give them a chance to implement that feedback, I guess, or implement that new behavior and learn, yes, and grow.
Yeah, like if someone is genuinely like trying to better themselves, like, yes, you can call them out, but you don't need to be tearing people down who are trying to grow. Yeah,
because honestly, I want people to look deep down internally inside yourself, and I want you to ask yourself, does tearing others down actually make me feel better about myself? And I don't want you to think about this superficially. I want you to actually, like, I don't know, journal about that question. Like, I want you to think about that. Because sure, superficially, if you're making a rude comment on, I don't know, one of our videos, you can be like, haha, this is funny. But does that actually make you feel better about yourself? Tearing someone else down, especially someone that you don't know. Like, do you actually feel good doing that? Like, do you like doing, like, deep down, does that spark something inside you? Or is it maybe an insecurity that you feel that you're projecting onto someone else? And how is projecting that insecurity on someone else going to help you heal that insecurity? A lot of it is all going to come from internal work that we have to do. I just want you to maybe think about that, I guess. You don't have to. This isn't school. This isn't homework, but I think it's good if we should all be doing self-reflection anyways, but at the end of the day, it's all up to us. We decide. I understand that mental illnesses can definitely affect our decision-making process, but we do still decide if we're going to go to therapy or if we're going to ignore the fact that we have mental health problems and just keep shoving them deeper and deeper. So it's not an easy thing. I will never say it's easy, but it is still a decision that we have to decide. Like, if we want to heal or if we want to just keep repeating the same patterns over and over. Exactly. And again, that's not easy. It never will be easy, but you have to make that decision yourself. No one else is going to heal you. You have to heal yourself. Others can help you 100%. Yeah. But you are still responsible for your healing to an extent.
Yeah. With healing, you do kind of need to open up yourself to let others help you. It's not really something you can do alone.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you definitely, I
Like,
just
you
don't
can
want
do some
people
stuff on
to, yeah, I definitely think you need, I guess I don't mean that just go like isolate yourself and think that you can heal. I more so mean that you can't go to, what I would say is you can't go to some spiritual healer and then be like, they healed me. Like, you still have to do internal work. You can use like spiritual healers if that is what helps you, but you still have to do some of the internal work yourself.
Yeah.
But yes, you can use whatever, like whether that's therapy. Like, again, I think therapy is definitely important, but I don't think necessarily therapy works for every single individual, but it is 100% important. I just think that there are other methods that some people may find more useful, as long as it's not you letting someone else tell you what to do, if that makes, like, if you go to somewhere like a spiritual thing and they're telling you, you have to do this and then you will be healed. No, don't, get out of there.
Yeah.
That's wrong. Nobody should be telling you what.
So even a therapist says that to you, because some
Oh yeah,
therapists will say,
yeah,
you do this and you'll be healed. Like, that's
yeah.
But yeah,
It's more so they're there in what I've always considered, they're just there to kind of help guide you
exactly.
towards your own healing.
Yeah.
So they're not there to heal you. They're just there to kind of help you get to those thoughts, I guess, in a sense. Is what I've always thought of it as.
They're there to help you heal yourself.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I got for.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any more, but
yeah, I think that's good for our discussion.
Okay. So if you guys have any specific topics that, again, you ever want us to talk about, you can leave a comment down here and on this video.
Yeah, or you can leave a comment on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok.
But yeah, so we'll see you guys every day of the week.